So, welcome to the eighth and also last lecture of this auditorium series, in which the social dimension of space is a central topic this year. So, before introducing you to our speaker of tonight, I would like to use this opportunity to really warmly thank people from Stad Architecture, among others, Petra and Crystal, who have invited Marlene and me to curate this series. And I want to tell that it was really an inspiring experience and that we have really enjoyed it. And I also hope that you have enjoyed it. And thanks for coming tonight for the first time or again for the next time. This lecture series on architecture and social change is about architecture, urbanism and design, and a renewed set of social commitments. And in order to better understand what this type of social commitment would entail or mean, we have listened to a carefully selected group of urban planners, architects, landscape architects, activists and artists. And this has resulted in a wide collection of various perspectives on this topic. Sometimes overlapping perspectives, sometimes contradicting, sometimes raising questions that were answered in the next lecture by the next speaker, sometimes also further confirming initial hesitations. Since time will be too short today, and it's also not really the right way, I think, to present you some sort of conclusion, and since you're all very eager to listen to Anna, I'm sure that I will limit myself to just one reflection, connected to what we have heard in previous lectures, and connected to the lecture of today. And in order to further elaborate the insights on this lecture, and in order to stimulate the debate on this topic, which I think is really important, Marlene and I would like to make a small publication on this, but we will post some information on that as soon as we have more details on the website of Stad Architecture. For tonight, we have invited Anne Lacaton. Anne, we're very pleased that you accepted, and honored also that you have accepted this invitation. Anne Lacaton is an architect and town planner. In 1988, Anne Lacaton and Jean-Philippe Fazal founded their agency, which is now located in Paris. Both of them have also practical experience with teaching. Anne Lacaton has been or is still teaching in various universities in Madrid, Lausanne, at the Harvard Design School, and in Paris. And the work of Lacaton and Fazal, I don't have to tell you, I'm sure that it's highly rated internationally and it's rich and varied. They have built commercial and cultural projects, schools and housing. And one moment. The renovation of the Palais de Tokyo and the transformation of the social housing block in Paris are probably the most best-known projects. The lecture of Anne Lacaton will be the last one of this session, and therefore, and also because the office is a big name, it could be seen as a sort of headliner. Yet personally, there is another, and I think the more important reason why I'm very happy that Anne Lacaton will be the one who will conclude this series. I'm sure that she will remind you tonight of a very important message. When talking about architecture and social change, one of the risks is that the role of the architect is either pushed to the background or starts to dominate everything. The architect as Superman or Superwoman. In the first case, the role of the architect is reduced to being a facilitator. Someone who brings all the parties together, from all sorts of building experts, civil servants, to the final users or residents, and thereby forgets his own expertise. In the latter case, there is an overestimation of what architecture can do. Architecture or design is not always the best or the only answer to deal with certain social situations or phenomena. Lacaton and Fazal have developed a very interesting approach that allows them to move beyond these sort of more stereotypical approaches. They believe in and demonstrate the necessary inventivity of the architect in all kinds of circumstances dealing with more or less fragile groups of people. They see architecture rather as an open, unfinished script. They cherish the idea of superimposition of the unfinished, the undetermined, For this, they like to design light structures and big spaces. Users are permitted, or better stimulated, to transform, divide, recompose, and set up a never-ending series of spatial situations that shape his or her everyday life. They believe very much in the potential and the capacity of the extra space, the space which has no clean function and program yet, offering room for the unexpected. And I end with a quote from themselves: "The bigger or more spacious it is, the greater the number of stories that will be able to unfold there, and the more one will be able to expect of it." We are very curious to listen to your story tonight. The floor is yours.
Question, should I speak in French or in English? So in English? No? How many don't understand French? And those who speak French, do you understand English? Yes? Okay, so let's go in English. Okay. Thank you for your invitation. I remind that I was here in that room 10 years ago for a lecture already, so I remember this very nice space, and I'm pleased to be here again. So I will present some of our works that we did, quite most recent works, and I will present through the topic of inhabiting, because inhabiting is for us an essential and major concept in architecture, and of course all these projects needs also a lot of other topics as large as possible for architecture, as transformation, landscape, reusing the existing construction, economy, and so many concepts that we have to work with in architecture. But inhabiting is for us the most important and the most interesting. Inhabiting conveys pleasure, generosity, the freedom to occupy a space. And beyond the functional, it challenges us to think about the possibilities around and ahead of oneself. Designing architecture on the basis of the notion of inhabiting means to construct space from the inside and not from the outside as a distant form. Inhabiting first concerns housing, but more broadly any space of use. Every place, whether private or public, is inhabited. We inhabit an office, a school, a museum, the park where we walk. In this way, the space for living must be generous, comfortable, adaptable, flexible, luxurious, and affordable. We think necessary, you talk about that, to create in every project spaces as large as possible, much more generous than the standards or programs, to multiply the space for uses and appropriation, to create intermediate spaces between the public and the private. It means building larger. Large spaces bring a vital feeling of escape and freedom, and for all our projects we start with the intention to create extra space, as much extra space as program space. And this extra space is a non-defined, unprogrammed space, free for use, added to the program space, and the combination of both allows freedom and appropriation. For dwellings, every dwelling must have a private outside space, as a balcony, a terrace, a winter garden, which offers the possibility of living outside, of having a garden like a single house. Building larger means twice more, but with the same cost, to be affordable for everyone, or to respect an allotted budget, and especially when it's public subsidies. Building double is our goal, to create more possibilities, other freedoms, new ways of inhabiting for any program, to loosen the constraints, to loosen norms, and to allow freedom of uses. And that was already the main idea that we developed when we started our practice. And we had this first commission to work on this little private house, single house, for a family of a couple and 2 children of workers. And they expected to buy a little house with a very low budget, and it turns that the plot that they have bought was not so easy to put on it a prefabricated house, and we were in contact to work on that house. We were young architects. It was our first project, and for us it was not very easy to manage this project of making something generous, but also to work with a quite low budget. At the time it was 65,000 euros, which is not a very important amount. But we had very strong ambitions. And the first meetings we had with this family, they didn't know exactly what an architect was doing, and we started, of course, to discuss about very practical things, such as the number of rooms. But very fast, we brought them to discuss to something else, and we came with books to this first meeting, and these books were not any books, it were the books for the case study houses which were built in the west coast of America, just after the last war. And because these houses were for us, these modern houses were for us a very good example of what the space should propose to inhabitants in terms of quality of housing, quality of space, of freedom, of the pleasure of space. And we started to discuss around these pictures, and the discussion was very interesting, and we started to make the project. But our main goal was not to make a cheap house, it was to make a very generous house, to really to criticize the standards of housing that at the time they could expect for the budget, 65 square meters house, and we were really involved to make something much more larger, because we were sure that 65 square meters is not enough to have a good life in a house with your family. So it was our goal to reach, and we wanted to make it whatever the cost is, whatever every constraint was. And we started to work on that way. And finally, it was a very difficult work, but very interesting project. And still now, we are still working on the basis of this project. And still now, every project contains this first project of House Lataki. So I can explain every project, even now, starting from this first project. And in the opposite of given us restrictions, we really discovered that finally the economy was a great freedom, because we had to look for different ideas to go radically out of standards of thinking, And for us, it was really a great freedom to make this house. And finally, we decided to forget in a way everything we had studied and to start in a new way of thinking. So we looked at different construction which were very cheap, and we tried to apply this construction of the house. And finally, the house is 180 square meters. This house has two parts. One part which is quite conventional of 120 square meters with living room, kitchen, bedrooms and so on. And this extra space of 60 square meters on ground, 6 meters high, which is a very large greenhouse, which is inspired of the agricultural greenhouses, but which was here prefabricated by the contractor. And this extra space is very generous and very, it's a place where the family makes the appropriation and the combination between the normal space and the extra space is full of inventions from the family, very different of what we expected when we did the project, because we had in mind that it could become a garden, but it was never a garden. It was an extra room which always changes with the furniture, with the uses, in winter, in summer, in spring, the morning, the afternoon. And this house in summer is also plot, because everything can be open. And that was very nice to see how the family finally appropriates this house. And the second point was also to work with the climate. In 1992, it was not yet this kind of very strong regulation about sustainability, about how to make very virtuous building for saving energy and so on. But it's not because we didn't have this regulation that the architects didn't think to that question of climate, of saving energy. And we looked very carefully to the greenhouses and how they catch the natural climate, the sun, to create inside natural good condition. And here the greenhouse acts as an intermediate space between inside and outside that already prepares the outside conditions to better condition, and then what you need to heat the house is lower, because instead of needing to heat from 20 to -5, you heat from 20 to 5 to 7 degrees. So that was a very nice experience, and very intuitively we worked on that greenhouse, and we could observe that it worked very well without sophisticated technical elements or anything else. So that house was really for us very, very important. We arrived to make it on with a budget, and 20 years later, we are still very pleased to go there. We have still very good relationships with the owner, and we are still amazed to see how they always change the life inside the house. And this question of economy was very interesting, because, as I explained, we could observe that finally the cost of the construction is not the result of a project, and after the project somebody calculates the cost and then says to the architects, no, it's too expensive, you have to change, you have to reduce. This question of economy must be part of the process of thinking the project, and very early in the project it's not to know everything about what's the cost of this material or this other material. It's just to understand what is the close relationship between economy and complexity. And if you understand that, you have really the key to go very far in your ambition and to make more with less. So, and we arrived to this this idea that here this is a standard. This is a standard dwelling for 2 bedrooms, 60 to 65 square meters. The walls, nothing to go out, and the rooms, which are quite narrow. And we started to think that, as for a private house on the plot, that would be nice to give these extra functions a part or in addition to the normal space. And then to give the possibility to move always from inside to outside. And again, starting from this standard element, which is nowadays combined with a very thick insulation, very little windows, but this extra space here can become also an intermediate space which is connected to every room of the dwelling. And finally, that could, starting from this plan, we have the goal to make always this new functioning of a dwelling. It means that 65 becomes 130 square meters, and we think that it's the right size to have a good life in a dwelling. So that's also the knowledge of an architect to be able to propose this evolution of the living space. So it allows also to solve in another way the question of saving energy. Instead of putting insulation, this new space around in a way creates an insulation. And that's now a good scheme to think how a dwelling or a house should be developed. So some years later, after this first house, we had the commission to work on collective social housing, which is public social housing in a little city in west of France, and it's in the middle of one of the biggest city workers' city created in Europe in the middle of the 19th century, of 1,500 little houses. And at the time they were built by the owner of the factory. It was a factory where they did fabrics. And the owner built all these 1,500 little houses for the workers. And at the time, every house was 36 square meters, and in 1850 it was considered as a great step for a better life for the families. So the factory, which was here, closed in the 60s, and the owner of the housing neighborhood became a public social housing company. And for the birthday of the 150 years old of the company, he decided to build, to complete the city and to build on the place of the factory new social housing on the 20th century. And we were 5 architects invited to think to this concept and to make a project. That was the existing, and here you can see, for example, the house which was divided in 4 parts, and 1/4 was a house for one family of 36 square meters. But finally, the family they bought step by step their 36 square meters. Sometimes they bought two dwellings, and the evolution was very interesting. So we started this project with 4 other architects, including Jean Nouvel, which was the first, who was contacted by the owner, and he said that he was interested to make this project if he could work with young architects we were introduced in the process. So the commission of this, the director of this social housing company was quite clear. He said to us, as a director of a social housing company, we build every year a lot of dwellings, maybe 500 to 600 dwellings a year. But we can observe nowadays that the standard of the modernist cell is not really working anymore with the families that we have to provide housing. Many often families with a lot of children coming from foreign countries, because it was a city with a lot of factories. Or we compose families with sometimes just a couple during the week, and during the weekend all the children will come to the home. And he asked to us, I would like you to propose me new typologies of housing. You are totally free to make any proposition, but the only condition is that we work with the public budget which is given for the construction, and which was at the time, in 2004 to 5, was 75,000 euros in average for the construction of one dwelling, only the construction, not the extra cost. So that was the final rendering. And we worked all together, the 5 architects, like in workshops, with a meeting every 2 weeks. We met one day every 2 weeks, and we discussed together with the project. We didn't have the goal to make a common project, because each of us has a different background, different ideas. But every 2 weeks we met to share our ideas, to present projects, and also to see what we could share to make the construction. So for our own, following what I explained concerning this first house that we did in Bordeaux, we were really involved to bring in the social housing program the ideas of living that we developed in the house. It means that starting from the standard, we were really involved to develop twice bigger dwellings in this program. And the owner, the client, he said, okay, if it's your proposition, I agree, but you have to remind that you should not spend more than the budget. And we did an agreement with him, and it was also the project of Jean Nouvel to make very large dwellings. And we did an agreement with the owner, and we said, okay, we go on with our idea, we respect the budget of construction, but if we do it, you must also yourself engage that you will not rent the dwelling in function of the surface, but in function of the typology. It means that he should not rent it higher because it's bigger. So he said, okay, I sign. And we started the process of project. We developed on the plot a project like a kind of first a very large construction, very economical construction, which allowed to use 100% of the right to build on the plot. We had to build 12 to 14 dwellings each. It means that if we take an average of 80 square meters, it would be around 1,000 square meters. But finally, with this construction, we could build 2,400 square meters. So we developed a simple construction. The height of the construction was given by the regulation of the neighborhood. So we developed a construction with 2 levels: a ground floor, which was a concrete open structure with columns and floor slabs, with nearly 3 meters on the ceiling. And it built a kind of a table. On this table, we could build 3 ranks of standardized agricultural greenhouses, and that was this first step of the design to make this construction, which could provide also very good condition for using the natural climate. So that was the first step of the construction, which was in a way like a very big loft. These greenhouses are very interesting because they offers all the systems to regulate the climate, natural climate, in terms of very high ventilations on the facade, but also on the roof, and also all the systems for shading under the roof, and also automatical system to open the ventilation on the roof, combined with the wind to close the ventilation when the wind is too high. So it's a very intelligent construction, which doesn't come from the field of building, but from the field of agriculture. So in fact, the way they approach the question of calculation is very different. For the building, you calculate, but you have always 20% of security more. If your column needs 20 by 20, it will make 25 by 25, because in case of. But for the agriculture, they don't calculate like that. They calculate just what they need to support the construction, to support the wind and so on. So we were really interested in the lightness on the construction, which proposed a minimum material for the maximum space, and for a very low cost, because the average of construction, of the cost of such construction is between 150 euros to 200 euros per square meters. So that then we, inside this construction, we propose to give to every dwelling the possibility of having 2 levels, and that was rendering with each time one apartment with 2 conditions: the ground floor conditions and the first floor conditions. And then we operated a work of division of this big structure to make this 14 apartments. And instead of dividing the space in equal parts, we defined a rule that every living room should have a transparent facade of 7 meters large, a bedroom of 3 meters large. And we divided the perimeter like that, and that gave us this division. The dwellings are combined by 2. For example, this yellow and this red. This yellow is large on ground floor and very narrow on first, and the neighbor is combined, is narrow on ground floor and quite large on first floor, but they are only combined by 2. And then they have a crossing orientation all, and in the corners we put either the smallest dwelling or the largest dwellings. So that was after the combination, but except these walls here, which are in concrete for the wind stability, all the construction is only columns and beams and floor slabs. It means that all the partitions, they are disconnected from the concrete structure, so you can select where you can put this plasterboard partitions in between, of course, in between the dwellings, but also inside the dwelling. So doing that, we could propose to an average of surface between 130 square meters for the smallest dwellings of 1 bedroom, to 180 square meters for the biggest of 4 bedrooms. And because it was very large, we proposed to the owner that we will make a very few partitions inside. It means that there are only partitions for the bathrooms, toilets, the garage, but we proposed to the owner to make this experience to deliver the dwellings without partitions, because we consider that as in a loft, the distance, the space, in a way makes a partition. So the owner was a little bit worried, and they didn't know how the inhabitants will accept this. And he said, okay, but it must be an experience, and during 2 years after the completion, you must come back every 6 months and discuss with the inhabitants and be ready to make any changes in the dwelling if the people ask for changes, and especially if they ask to have normal partitions inside the house. So we did that, and finally nobody asked for partitions. So that's very important in a project, not to as an architect, it's really important never to think the worst, but in the opposite, to be very optimistic and to propose always more and say, okay, but I'm ready to make a little step if necessary, because everybody thinks first the worst. And around an architect, there are so many people that are here to say the worst to you, that it's important that as an architect you are not in that way of thinking, and that you be very optimistic, and that you propose things. There is no risk to propose things. You have just the risk to have to discuss, and finally, very often after discussion, you convince. So it's very important to take this risk. So to come back to this project, we arrived to the end. We completed the project in the budget. The client rented and also did what he proposed, not to rent in function of the surface, but in function of the typology. That was, for example, one of the dwelling before inhabitants come. And you can see here, for example, the glass wall, which is in between the traditional living room and the greenhouse. So that's the limit of the heated part. But of course, in spring, summer, when you don't need to heat, you can open all these sliding windows, and the floor is at the same level, so you have an extension of the living room. You see here the shading of the greenhouse, and you can see here all the curtains, which are totally necessary with the large glass windows to complete the insulation and to complete also the requirements in terms of the. So this is special curtains that at the time were not very developed, but we work in a company that at the time made insulation for the tracks with aluminium sheets and insulation inside. And finally, for this project, they developed, starting from this product, they developed these curtains with an aluminium side close to the window, and inside it was decorative fabric. So view from the other side. And after the inhabitants come, and 14 apartments and 14 ways of using the space, much more open and interesting that we could even imagine. And that was very interesting to see that finally the people, they are not so narrow-minded that very often it's said at the beginning, but when you propose something else to people, they are very often ready to make the experience and to use very freely the space. So just a few examples. The time is running. So one of the apartments here in the corner. Here you have the garage. A very big living room over 60 square meters. One bedroom on the ground floor, and on the first floor, two other bedrooms and the bathroom, and here an outside space. So here, that is the living room. This apartment is 165 5 square meters compared to the standard for the same typology, which was 100 square meters. The construction cost was 90,000 euros net, the same as the standard of 100 square meters. And the rent in 2005 was 467 euros per month, exactly the same rent as if he has rented a standard housing of 100 square meters. But this discussion with the owner before the project about the question of the rent was very, very important, because if at the end he rents the dwelling higher because it's bigger, it's no more affordable for social housing. So it's very important also to discuss not only architecture, not only the project, but many things around the project which makes it possible. So the same dwelling. Another one, which is a neighbor. Here you can see this living room with 2 bedrooms, and you can see that there are no partitions. The living room, this is the same dwelling that I showed before without furniture. And this extra space, which is a greenhouse of 40 square meters, with all the equipments for creating a good climate, naturally. Another one in the middle of the construction, because it's very long and 20 meters long and 7 meters large. So the garage, which is made as a normal room, it means that for those who don't have cars, they can use immediately as an extra room. On the ground floor, a large bedroom with a bathroom, and the first floor. So another project, which was completed 2 years ago in another city in west of France, but commissioned on the same basis as in Mulhouse. That was also for social housing, and we had to build in this plot, which was in between this social housing of the 50s with a quite high density, and in the other part of the other front of the plot, very row houses with very low density. And the problem was what kind of housing to make in between. In between these two inhabitants, which never met. So we proposed to make an intermediate density and not to build too high. The other part of the plot was tennis and sport ground. And we proposed to build 3 rows of houses of ground floor and 2 levels. Which was what was specific, that we proposed not to make garages close to the dwellings, but to let the garage at the entrance of the construction, and then the people move, they walk to their dwelling. So what is green is only pedestrian ways, and the cars should stop here and park under these 2 first constructions. So this project should be, in the commission, we should build fast and economically. So we worked on a special kind of construction, again with open structure, because we definitely work with open structure. We don't like to work with concrete walls, and we like construction that you can build and very fast. And here it's totally prefabricated with a steel structure. And these floor slabs of nearly 10 meters long. So it means that inside the flat you don't have any structure. So you can make the partition as you want. And finally, that was this 53 dwellings between 1 bedroom up to 4 bedrooms. So here again, every dwelling has a crossing orientation with bedrooms on the north, a balcony, winter gardens in front of every room. Here it's on the ground floor. It's not as big as we expected as in Mulhouse, but here the plot was narrow, and it was also necessary to be quite efficient in terms of number of houses. So the construction is simple, and we let as much as possible the materials as they are, which needs to build very well, because there is no materials which recover the construction, no plaster ceilings, but the underneath of the floor slabs. But it's also in that way that we can make economies to build larger. It's in the efficiency of the construction that we create the margins to pay the extension of space. All the bathrooms, they have also large windows opening on balconies. And this one is on the top, on the last level, underneath the roof. The sliding glass windows, again, they close the heated part. It's double glass with a quite high double U performance. And always a winter garden. Here it's 2 meters 20 plus a balcony of 1 meter. The stairs are in between the construction because it was less expensive than to create a staircase inside the construction. And for many dwellings, the entrance is not directly inside the dwelling, but in the winter garden. Another project in Paris that we have recently completed, it's just starting to be inhabited, and it's a mixed program of nearly 100 students' residents, 30 social housing dwellings for families, a little residence for disabled, 6 bedrooms for disabled on the ground floor, and also some little shops. So that's in the center of Paris. So we used here again the maximum of the possibility of building in terms of floor footprint on floor, but also in terms of the height of the construction. This side is the side of the students' residence, and inside on the right, here it's a student residence up to here, and then here it's the dwellings for the families, when the residence for the disabled is here on ground floor, connected to the garden. So just very quickly the normal plan with here the student residence with every room is 20 square meters with a little winter garden and the balcony. And here it's a combination of the apartments which have also a crossing orientation, and for a winter garden in front and also a balcony. And some pictures. I don't have pictures after arrival of the inhabitants because they They are just inhabited for the beginning of April. And some terraces on the last levels. This is just social housing, also by the company of social housing of the city of Paris. So it's public social housing, and it will be all rented. Another part of this question of inhabiting and housing. Inhabiting is, as explained at the beginning, is for us always starting from inside. It means that inhabiting is a question of space to live, a space to move, the quality of space, quality of light, the quality of extra space. Of course, we can work on that question for the new housing, but we can also think in the same for the same condition with the transformation of the existing, because it's an important work for the architects nowadays to work on the existing, and especially on the modernist housing of the 60s, 70s, because in many cities there are a lot of suburbs with this kind of programs. And the work that we did on that question started 10 years ago, when in France the government decided to launch an important program for urban renovation, and especially working on the suburbs of the 60s, 70s, and this program was based on the demolition and rebuild of an important amount of dwellings of that time. It was based on the demolition of more than 200,000 dwellings, and to rebuild them one to one, with a very important budget of 18 billion of euros for a period of five years. So at the time when this program was decided by the government, together with a friend, Frédéric Ruot, who is also an architect, and we studied together in Bordeaux, we really we couldn't accept this idea that the demolition was the only solution to work with this heritage, and we decided to study if something else was possible instead of demolition. And of course, because there was a lot of money which was given to make this demolition and rebuild. 18 billions, it means that 15 were given to demolish and rebuild, with an average of 150,000 to 180,000 euros to demolish one dwelling and rebuild one. And the 3 other billions were dedicated to refurbish in very low conditions to more than 300,000 other dwellings. It means that it's 10,000 euros for one dwelling. So 10,000 euros, you cannot make anything, just maybe refurbish electricity, insulate facade, something like that. And 180,000 in the other hand, and nothing in between. So it's demolition or nothing. So we were really involved to see that if something else was possible, and also because we could observe that even if a lot of problems could appear in these neighborhoods, a lot of people are living there for a long time. It's a place where they are living, and even if their life is not the most, the nicest as they would like, they live there, and it's a place where they live, and they like the place where they live. So it was very difficult to imagine that somebody who is not living there, just looking to a problem or to a map, could say, okay, this building, demolish and rebuild this one, without taking care that maybe 200, 500 people are living there, and they have also feelings. Maybe they want to stay in this neighborhood. So we decided to work on that question, and we did a research which was published under this title, Plus, and we studied very carefully for some examples. which were in the list of demolition and rebuilding, and we studied in very detailed way to justify, in the other sense, all the problems that were said on that question, that nothing was possible, that they were bad built, that transformation is more expensive than demolition and rebuild. So all these assessments, or what's the name? Les affirmations, which are totally wrong, but it's administrative language to justify a decision. So we took every point and we studied on some example. We didn't study this one, but this one is La Courneuve, one of the first Iowa's estate built in the suburb of Paris in the 60s, which is now quite no more existing. And this image of the demolitions, which are very, very expensive, because first they have to take away asbestos and so it's very expensive. And this image is of demolition. And finally, on these 4 examples with different period of construction, different system of construction, we could see that there was always a solution to make something else than just demolish and rebuild. If the question of quality of living was the first question, it means that if you don't take care about what you see from outside, if it's beautiful or not, this is not the question, but just to really to consider the inside, the quality of construction, what is positive, what is negative, and make what is necessary to improve the quality of life inside the building. And we found always a solution to transform, to increase, to extend. And in the most expensive case, the cost was 60,000 euros to transform one dwelling in very, very, very good conditions. It means it's 1/3 of the cost of demolition and rebuild. So we studied that, but at the time it was not possible to talk about that because the decision of the government was very, very strong. It was shared in between different ministries. So we studied we published our study in Spain, but it was quite impossible to meet anybody and the Ministry of Housing or to try to explain something. But some years later, we had in 2007 we had the opportunity to work on this competition. It's a building in Paris, Tourbois-le-Pret, which was here. This is a ring around the center of Paris. This is Paris and this is the suburb. And there was a lot of developments here made in the early, in the 60s or early 70s. And at the time built to when many people, many families came back from North Africa and they had to build a lot at the time. So there was quite a good architecture, a good construction made by the architect Clément Lopez, who did some good examples of housing in France, but also in some other countries as Germany, Berlin. And that was he built this tower with quite good conditions. The apartment was quite open with loggias. The ground floor was under columns with some common spaces. And in the early 80s, when came the time to start the insulation of buildings, some companies did a very bad work of refurbishment, and they just put this new cladding around, this insulation and panels. And at the time they only did this technical refurbishment without taking care of the quality of the space, of the quality of the building, and they really damaged the I don't talk about the architecture, but they really damaged the conditions of housing in Stad. They closed the ground floor with these screeds. They closed in front the loggia with these plastic panels and little windows without taking away the former facade. And they introduced these very narrow windows when the view around is open and fantastic all around. So we were invited to work on that competition because this building is owned by the city of Paris, and after having studied the project of demolition and rebuild, we finally decided to keep it and to make a project of transformations. So for the competition, we proposed two main ideas. The first one was that we will not consider the shape of the building. That was not a problem for us, that it's a tower or not. It was not a problem, so we didn't have in mind to cut it and to change the cladding. We started to work, we decided to work only by considering the quality of space, and for us the increase of quality of space was to make extension for all the dwellings and all around the block. So that was the proposition of making these new floors. In white it is the existing block with all the plans of the dwellings, and in color that was the extension that we proposed to make. We proposed also to add some elevators in the halls existing of the construction. And the second main proposition was that we would make this transformation without removing the inhabitants. It means that we will not empty the block, but we will make the works. So it's supposed to work on a special method of construction, which would make not so many works inside, important works on the inside structure, but only work with extension which are structurally independent, and that we could add in front like scaffolding. So that was the proposition, to work with modules of 3 meters large and 7 meters 0.5 with a floor, 4 columns, because it was not supported by the existing building. A new facade, which was supposed to replace the 2 existing facades, the one of the 60s, but also the one of the 83, and a second lighter facade, which was the facade of the winter garden. So we won the competition on this basis, and then we started the studies. So that was the section about the process, and you can see clearly that this extension, they are just they have just some links with the floors, but they are not supported by the existing construction. So the section of the building before and after, so the building takes 3 meters more on each side. Then we starting, it was a demand from the owner, because we proposed to work with, to keep the inhabitants. So of course we proposed to introduce the inhabitants in the process, not to make the project, but to have permanent discussion, and also to involve them in the process, because we knew that they will go until the end. The first question, which was asked to the inhabitants, if some families don't want to stay because they are afraid of the process, of the time, and so on, they can say it, and the owner would find to them a new apartment. But finally, all the inhabitants decided to stay and to take part to the process. So we had around 6 months of this work with inhabitants. First, it was general meetings with all families all together to explain the project and different elements by elements of the project. Then we visited all the 96 dwellings to see how it was inside, and also to meet the families, because during the meetings we had an average of 30 families. It means that more than 60 families, they never come to the meeting, so it was important to try to meet them by way. So the observation of the technical aspect was a good way to introduce to the families and to discuss with them. And then there was also an important work between the Association of Inhabitants and the owner to discuss about the rent, the cost of the rent after the completion, because it should remain affordable by the families. But also it was during the visit we could see that many families were not at the right place. Because some old families which were in the building since the 60s, at the beginning it was a big family of six persons, and 40 years later there were only the two persons of the couple, but they didn't ask anything because they wanted to stay on the building, and they knew that if they asked for a smaller apartment, maybe they would have to move somewhere else in the city. And in the opposite, we could meet young families with many children, and they had only 1 or 2 bedrooms. So we put all these questions on the table with the owner, and we said that it was really part of the process, that it was the process should be transparent, and that the people could say clearly how was their situation and what they could expect for the project. So there was an important work in that way, which to ask questions to the families. It was not made by the architects, it was not made by the owner, not by the architects, not by the owner, but by independent persons, to be sure that they could speak with the most freedom. And finally, at the end, we received a big amount of information. And this sketch shows that from the existing situation, how we replaced around 40% of the family who wanted to change their typology. So it was quite long work, but finally we arrived to find the good location for every family. And then we started the process of technical studies and tender action. Just some data. The global extension of floor area is 40 plus 40%. It means that we passed from 8,900 square meters to 12,400 square meters. We passed from 96 dwellings to 100 dwellings. We added to every dwelling an addition of a winter garden and balconies, and for some of them also habitable space, but a minimum of 22 square meters to 60 square meters per dwelling of winter garden and balcony. Just by doing this work of changing the facade, putting this extra space of winter garden, we reduced we cut to 50% the consumption of energy for the heating, without putting any solar panels or anything, just by the new quality of facade and the double facade and the winter gardens. The cost of the construction, only construction, was 11 million compared to the cost of demolition and rebuild, which was calculated by the owner before they decided to make this project, which was 20 million. It means that it's quite half. It's a little expensive because it's in Paris, and the conditions for making the construction are not very easy. For example, the trucks cannot come in the city in the day, so they should come in the night, stop in close to the side, bring their materials in the morning, and then wait again the night after. We had also difficulties to work with the cranes because there was not so much free land around, and one side of the building should be made in blind conditions, but because the crane was on the side, so of course it needed special materials, but also special people to make this works. And the building was occupied during the construction works. So that's the prototype that we did before building on the site, and then we started when everything was strictly planned, because it was very important that before we start the construction, everything was really planned, because if you work with the families inside, it means nearly 400 persons living there. It must be really very, very strict and rigorous. And we started the process of building the module in front, and also taking away the existing facade. Those facades of the 60s and the 80s contains asbestos, so it's special conditions to take the panels away. So we really aggregate a lot of difficult constraints in terms of construction. And the construction of the module was quite fast, 6 to 7 modules a day, and there were 150 modules to build, so it means that in 3 months we could make all the extensions. Then it took another 2 months to make the fire protection of the steel columns, and after the fire protection is made, we could open the new windows, and the people could use the extension. In the same time, we did a second works of inside the dwellings to renovate all the bathrooms, renovate electricity. Some apartments renovate paintings and so on, and also bring 2 new elevators and change the existing. And with this work of this project of working, the project starts from the quality of the inside. It produces a transformation of the image, which is not coming from demolition and rebuild, but coming from the transformation and the improvement of the quality of living. So some pictures before and after, because now sometimes we don't really remind how it was before, but the pictures are here to remind you to it. So this apartment that became this extra space of 2 meters. In fact, the 3 meters, the extension of 3 meters was defined because we expected to build the module outside the site and to bring it on tracks, and 3 meters was the maximum to bring on track. But finally, the contractor didn't do like that. He built the floors, then he transported the floors, but not flat, and then he built on the side the handrails and so on. And that was more clever than what we planned before. So now we know that we can make more than 3 meters. Some apartments, like this one, we didn't touch so much inside because the old lady, they took care to the furniture, to everything, and she really wanted to keep it as it was, and we just worked from the facade to the outside. As well as this one, this old lady of 96 years old. And we have exactly the same picture before with the small windows and the picture back. So I will show quite fast two other projects in the same way, which one is nearly completed and the other one will start in the construction. This one is in a city in the west of France, in Saint-Nazaire, and we have to work on this block of 40 dwellings in the same way of transformation. So that was the block, with 40 dwellings. And in this project, we because it was a very different situation than the one in Paris, it was really a neighborhood with very low density on floor. There was less than 10% of the ground which was occupied by the construction, and a lot of parking lots and bad green areas. So we propose in that project not only to make extension of the 40 dwellings, but to use the capacity of the ground to receive a little densification, to propose extension and densification. It means that we propose to extend the extension and to build inside 40 new apartments in addition to the 40 already there that we refurbish. So here again, the work starts from the inside, and we didn't touch so much inside. Just take away the old insulation and the panels, and bring around this new extension, which is only made with steel. It's quite a dry construction because the floor are made with steel, and it's prefabricated elements with steel, insulation, and concrete. And the result after the extension is this one. The project starts from the existing dwellings. What inhabitants say that for us the worst was the little bathrooms, which were 2.5 square meters. So we proposed to replace the little bathroom in one bedroom and to build a new bedroom outside, and to connect the new bedroom to the living room by a winter garden. And this here, this is the new wing with 20 new dwellings. The cost here is really less expensive than in Paris. In Paris, it was nearly 90,000 euros per dwelling. Here is 40,000 per dwelling. 40,000 per dwelling to make this transformation. And another one in Bordeaux that we have studied. We made a project after competition for this three big construction of 530 dwellings. And here again we make a transformation. It's 100% full up, so we can't remove anybody because they don't have any dwellings to. So we have to make the project with the inhabitants. And the cost here is 42,000 euros per dwelling to make this project of extension. The construction is a little different than the one in Paris, because here in Paris the facade of the existing panels. Here it's much more walls, but we will just open the handrails to give access to the extensions. So all these projects of transformation, they are very, very important, because we know that a lot of housing buildings like that in the city. That's the problem everywhere, to know how they can be refurbished, how they can be transformed. With one of the main questions, how can we make a good transformation for better quality of climate, for saving energy, and all the regulation bring to make a very standardized renovation with insulation on the facade around, reducing the size of the windows, And many times you can see that the buildings are refurbished in a very, very common way. And we could learn from the first renovation of the 80s that making only this technical renovation is a very short-term project, because in France, many of the buildings which have been demolished, they have been already refurbished in the 80s with only insulation around. And nowadays there is a second wave of renovation for quality of insulation, and in many countries it's the same, which is again made without taking care or taking lesson of what was made 20 years ago and which is not working. So that's very important to put on the table this question, and to bring the owners, to bring the cities, to bring to have a discussion of what is the most important in the question of housing, and of course the technical questions, sustainability. That's of course very important. But for housing, the most important is first to create the best conditions of living, because we know that it's the only thing that which lasts long in the time. The good proof is that when we studied when we did the study, we could see same buildings made at the same time with same condition of construction, but in a different made in different conditions, because in some case the architects has made a very good job for quality of housing. And they didn't build fast a lot of units without taking care of the quality of housing itself. These buildings made also 40 to 50 years ago, which have been made with a lot of care, nowadays they work very well. They are well inhabited, nobody wants to leave them. There are very good refurbishments, so that should bring us to have a clear position as architect on that question, and it's what we try to do on these projects. But the problem is that also that the regulations are so strong in terms of this regulation on climate, saving energy, that it's very difficult to escape to very standard solutions. In fact, this regulation, they don't give objectives, they give solutions. And it's very difficult to say, okay, we all agree with the objectives, we know that we have to take care about the quality of construction, about energy consumption, but we don't want to have standard solutions. We want to invent solutions that works in that way, but also which take care to the quality of the housing. I think it's very important for the architects to be very creative and to make a lot of propositions in that way. I'm sure that it's only coming from the creation for innovation and much more than this very very big policies of innovation that we can see nowadays in our countries, all similar in all our countries, in France, in Spain, in Germany, everywhere. And it's a pity that so much money is spent for this renovation and that it doesn't produce more quality than it should be. So I think it's already 1 hour and I'm not finished, so can I go on? Yes? Because I'm sorry, but I'm taking a lot. I prepare a second part to the lecture, which is, as I explained, this question of inhabiting is not only the question of housing, it's a question of space in general. It's a question of being somewhere, and inhabiting is right everywhere. Here, this project is a project that we did for the School of Architecture in the city of Nantes. A few years ago, we completed this project in 2009. And this was a project that we did after a competition. The city of Nantes had already a school of architecture, but it was located in the suburb, and at the occasion of the transformation of the school, they finally, the Ministry of Culture finally decided to relocate the School of Architecture and to build it in the center of the city in a new neighborhood, which is a former industrial island with a lot of new developments of public equipments, public space, but also a lot of new housing. So that was a very, very nice location, and we had a brief to program to build a school for 1,000 students. So for this school, we developed some ideas which are very close to what I explained about the housing, and especially the first house. It means that we thought that for this school we should give as much as extra space than the program space, because if we consider that the studio for teaching the architecture is 60 square meters for 20 students, we think that it's also necessary to have another 60 square meters to develop free appropriation, free works, to invest the space and to make something new. So we started with this idea that the school should also have this amount of extra space over the program that we see. The second point, which was very, very important for us, was to say that in a city, the School of Architecture is certainly the place where the debates, the discussion about the city, about urban planning, about architecture, about construction, about sustainability are the most important all along the year. The School of Architecture is a place where many places of the city are studied all along the year through the sites in the studios, through the projects. And for a city, it's a kind of mine of resources, a mine of ideas, a mine of examples, which is in a way not enough used. And we consider that here, also because it was in the center of a new development, that instead of making all the discussion, all the exhibition somewhere else, that could be done in the school itself, and the school that attracts all this public discussion, public exhibition, better than another place. So we started, we proposed in the project to use all the possibility of volume, which was much more important than what needed by the program. But because around there was already a lot of public spaces, we didn't find interesting to recreate outside public space in front of the school, because we had a lot around, and we prefer to create this public space inside the school. So we developed the idea of what was very interesting at the place was to develop urban floor, and not consider that it was floors of construction, but urban floors. So we proposed as a first step of the project to make a big structure with high capacity of rebuilding on every floor. It means that it was the maximum height that we could build. So starting from the ground floor, which was staying as a ground floor, as the city floor without any concrete and just asphalt, we built the first new floor at 9 meters high, a second one at 16, and the third one at 23. It means that here we have 9 meters high, 7 meters and 7 meters. And then to make a ramp quite large, which will link all these new floors to make a kind of new structures with the possibilities of a load of 1,000 kilos per square meters, which led the possibility to rebuild on every floor. So the structure was quite large, it was a grid of nearly 10 by 10, with only 2 blocks with the staircase, but which did also the stability of the building, and this ramp, which is running on the longest side of the structure, up to the last level on the top. And we considered that that was the first step to create a structure in which the school could come, but it could be 20 years or 30 years later something else. So it was why this question of urban floor was important in the concept. So that the construction that came after, of course. But for the competition, we proposed these 2 steps. The first one was to build the structure, and we said in the competition that if we were not in competition, we would like to stop there, and then to say, okay, now we make the project of school with the school itself. But in competition, it's quite difficult to not to feel the brief, because it's not, maybe they can reject your proposition. So we proposed to make to show that it was possible to introduce a school of architecture inside this structure. That, of course, at the time was only drawings. And the school of architecture came by introducing inside this structure new floors in between that could receive the functions of the school. Because, of course, we don't need always 9 meters in the ceiling, but sometimes here, for example, we needed 2 auditoriums, one of 250 seats, another one of 150. And then we had the studios for project, and to divide 7 meters in 2, it means that you have two levels of 3 meters, 0.5 in the ceiling, and so on. So that gave this kind of occupation of the structure, which was nearly half of the construction, and these pink floors filled the original program of 9,000 square meters, when the structure itself proposed a capacity of floor of 26,000 square meters inside or outside. So these extensions could be put on the floors because they could receive on any point the possibility of rebuild of 500 kilos per square meters, because 500 plus 500, it means the 1,000 that we had on every floor. So that's here a moment when we have introduced in this 9 meters high volume, we have introduced a part of this construction, which was here the cafeteria, and here a little part for the bike car parking. Then this the auditorium, which is also a prefabricated structure, which is not supported by the columns. And it means that in this sketch, the program is in green, and the blue is the extra space in addition to the initial program. Some pictures after the completion. It's now already 5 years ago. This is a ramp which is running, that could be used by cars, but mainly by pedestrians, and the use of car is of course exceptional if you need to bring something in the floors or in the top, but it's not a car parking, so the main use is pedestrians and bikes. So the entrance of the school and the starting point of the ramp. The ground floor, this is here the entrance, and which is where the cafeteria can be developed. And this space where we have kept 9 meters on the ceiling, and this is 1,000 square meters to develop models or installations at the scale, if wanted, at the scale 1 to 1. That's widely open on the street, so they can also bring materials here in the place. But it can be also an interesting place for students parties, concerts, or any events, because they make a lot of external events such as theaters, dance, conferences, which are open to all the public, not only for the school. This is the main auditorium, which is also which has very large door, which can be open, because in this school there is a studio of scenography, so they were interested to make experience and to can use the public space as a scene. Some unexpected uses. And then inside the ramp, which is first serving the bike car parking. Then the first level of the studio. The main level of the school with the classrooms, but also the library. And the combination of double height volumes and single height volumes. And these large windows, which opens the view to the city, so it can be a terrace, but it can be also inside to develop activities. So sometimes it's totally empty, and sometimes it's a lot of activities. So it's also the life of the school to have up and down rhythms. And the studio, here you can see the normal studio and then the extension, the extra space given to the studio. And we receive always a lot of pictures of different uses. We have a big amount of pictures of a lot of different uses. It's very difficult to select some of them. And the last level, which is a kind of public plaza on 24 meters high, which is very nice, which gives a very nice overview all over around the city, but also it's a place of 2,500 square meters, which allows to make a lot of different events. We have put on the floor a lot of possibilities to forget the name, accrocher, to attach tent, circus, because they are quite sometimes the wind. So on the top of every column there is a hole with possibility to attach temporary constructions. And sometimes this plaza becomes also this urban balcony to see some events which happens in this. And of course the night life, because it's open until midnight, and as you know, it's necessary to work all the time when you have students and as well as architects. And the last project, which is also a public equipment, it's a contemporary art center that we are just completing in the end of 2013 in the north of France, in Dunkerque. That was here, and this is a harbor of Dunkerque. There's a very long beach, and here is the site for the harbor. And the project is located here. It was a former very important industrial era where they were building very big boats that declined in the 80s, and the place was totally destroyed and emptied to make a new neighborhood, which is today under construction, and it's mainly residential housing. And the region decided they kept this building, which was very important in the memory of the harbor, because it's a place where they were finishing the big boats, and in the memory of a lot of workers of that place, they called it Cathedral, because it was a very iconic building for the industrial activity. So the city and together with the region decided to introduce in this building a program of name is Fonds Régional d'Art Contemporain. It means that it's a public collection for contemporary art. And these institutions were created in France 30 years ago. And the origin, it was not scheduled to make exhibitions, but only to collect artworks, and especially from young artists. And to exhibit, to storage these artworks, and to exhibit them in schools, in hospitals, in public spaces, but not to have exhibition space. And 30 years later, they have a lot of collection, because they are in every region in France. There is such institution, and 30 years later, they have very big collection. And now they build new buildings to not only to storage, but also to exhibit. So that was a brief to introduce in that place here a program of 7,000 square meters, half for storage and half for exhibitions, education, administration, and so on. So this is this building, which remains from this former industrial era. It's a huge building of totally empty inside, 25 meters large, 35 meters high, and 75 meters long. And inside, totally empty. And that was the visit before the competition was very important for us, because when we entered the space, we were really amazed and touched by the space, and very intuitively our first idea was to say that it was really a pity to have to fill this space and to make floors inside, to make storage, and so that came to our mind that maybe something else could be done. But anyway, for the competition, it's important to have intuition, but it's also important to not to go too fast to these intuitions, and to make some other ways, and finally to come back to your first ideas. So we did the exercise to fill this building with a program. Just for example, that's if you know the Tate Modern Gallery in London, that's such a space. Tate Modern is twice longer, but it's the same, nearly the same section. So when you imagine the exhibition which has been done in the Tate Modern, we can imagine the potential of such a space. That's really a chance, and it was supporting to us this idea that maybe it was not a very good idea to fill the space. So finally, after making the different exercise to fill in the space, we decided to follow our first idea and to say, okay, we keep it as it is, we don't fill it, we keep it as empty space, and we built exactly the same on the side to fill the program and to make this new institution. So, and for us it was important to make exactly the same, not to give a too iconic signification to the existing, and also to let the new one exist. So we were thinking that making the same was, in a way, to restart the story of rebuilding the site with a new big buildings. So the new one could offer the best conditions that were expected for the storage, with air conditioning, with humidity, and so on. If not, we should have made a lot of important works in the existing to change the facade, to bring insulation, and so on. So it was very convenient in a way to make this double building. And in fact, here we found the extra space first and we built the program. So it's, in a way, it's a kind of reverse process of program and extra space, and here we had already the extra space. And then we proposed to organize functions so that the visitor could immediately go on the top of the building, because we could experience in trying to fill in the existing that something very interesting was happening on top, because you could have a view on the sea that you don't have when you are on the ground. So the idea was to bring as fast as possible the visitors to the exhibition on the top, and to take benefit of the view, and then to go down by stairs and to visit the other exhibitions on every day. So that was the rendering that we gave for the competition. We won the competition after first having been rejected, because the commission who opened the project, they considered that we were out of the brief. But finally, nothing in the brief said that it was forbidden to make an extension. So finally, they reintegrated our project for the jury, and finally the jury selected the project. And we could go on with the studies and start the construction. So the construction is made with a kind of a core with all the functions, with prefabricated concrete structure, and there is a big and this core is the best conditions for conservation of artworks, for exhibition, and so on. But we have an envelope which is detached from the structure, and which provides extra space with a lot of transparency. And the stairs are in between the envelope and the structure. So under construction, that is one of the main exhibition rooms. With minimum material for the structure to build the maximum space. For us, that's very important, and we are quite exigent with the engineers that they really calculate what is necessary and not more. We don't like to put more materials than we need for the construction. And the completion after the work some months ago. There are just a few works in the existing hall, because it was already refurbished some 10 years ago, so it was in perfect conditions. And we could concentrate the budget in the new one, because of course the proposition was to make this double, but also was to make it within the budget and without spending more than the budget given for the competition. So the in between of the new structure and the existing, but is the envelope makes the junction. And the last level, which is an extra space under this transparent roof, where there can be also some exhibitions. And this level opens the views around on the sea, on the harbor, on the city. And here again, we used all these equipments coming from the industry of the greenhouses. This is inflatable cushions, and you can see here the little pipes which give air in the cushions. The stairs, which are in between, out of the structure and in between the envelope. This is the main room for exhibition. This is removable wooden walls, which are here because they needed walls to exhibit, but they can be removed to make a very large open space. Here again, this double facade, which is very efficient for the thermal calculations. And some platforms, which goes to the existing halls. It allows to bring artworks, but also to have views on the existing hall, to have also the feeling of being on top of this high building. And we have also reintroduced these cranes, which have been destroyed before. So it allows to make inside very big events, possibility of big loads, of making big concerts, and so on. Some dark rooms to present films. An education department also. Another exhibition room on the first floor. This is a little street in between the two buildings, and that was one of the requirements of the program, but before it was out of the building because they didn't expect that somebody would make an extension, but we have kept it, and it is in between the new structure and the existing one. The storage and the stairs. The stairs are out of the system of exhibition, and you visit exhibition and then you change the atmosphere. You are much more in the landscape here. And the ground floor, the coffee shop connected with the hall, and we just opened this wall to make a transparent connection in between the hall and the exhibitions. The very big door, we have just refurbished the system to open it, but it's the original door, and it works very well. And the night use of this day. Thank you very much.
I'm very happy that he took the time to listen to also the last two projects, but I suggest to keep the time for the questions rather short, but if there are any questions I would really like to hear them, so shoot. Someone dares to ask the first? Yes, please.
What I really liked about the last project when you visited with our class is that you could kind of go on an adventure and explore.
Sorry, just a second. Okay, you can.
So I visited this project with my class a couple of months ago, and what I really like about this project is that you could kind of go on an adventure and explore things and like try secret routes and or try to bump the facade. That you could kind of do seemingly like illegal stuff or go on an adventure or like try different routes. And I was wondering, is it on purpose or not? It makes you rebellious in some way. I don't know if other people had as well.
You know that you don't always control everything, but if you start from the principle that a project should give freedom to the youth, it's really interesting to see that freedom is taken. The problem is that normally the visitors could open every door, but yes, but I know that the people who take care of the building they restrict a little bit.
There is security walking around.
Yes, but we have some feedback of that, and we will discuss with the director about it. It's what I said before, that around you there are always people who think to the worst.
Calculations or heights of ceilings. But you never talk about proportions or aesthetics, and you always feel the project that there is a certain aesthetic about it, but it seems that in dealing with the project you never discuss it in the office, that the projects are really beautiful and really nicely proportioned and stuff like that. So I wonder if you are really paying attention to it, or it's more because everything's so thought of that it becomes automatic.
In fact, this question of aesthetic or proportion of materials is not a question in itself. It's always a kind of consequence of a process of thinking about space, about light, about use, about how to use a space, and for example, more than proportion, we prefer to talk about dimension. Dimension is very important because dimension relates to the geometry, to the relationship between a function and a space, a relationship between the inside and outside, between the use and the volume, between the capacity of a space, between the well-being, the feeling space. So all these elements are much more important than to talk about proportion. So the question of dimension for us is very important because it relates to the necessary exactness of the architecture, which is not something opposite of creativity, of invention, of poetry, and both are totally necessary at the same time. It means that rigor and and creativity are working together. So the question of the dimension is very important, related to this question of the geometry. And the geometry is a consequence of all what I say about what kind of quality must provide the space. So taking the decision of having 4 meters on the ceiling or 9 meters, it's a very important decision. It's not a question of proportion only. It's not because it would be a right proportion of a kind of conventional way of making the space. It's a result of a discussion about all these fragments of this discussion about the space. And it's very important for us to work like that. And the question of aesthetic, the question of facade is also linked to that. It's a consequence of all this decision about the quality of space, about the use of space, about the way of you take the light or you filter the light, which kind of relationship you want to have with the outside, close outside, but also the far outside. So the scale of a building is not limited to its walls. It can be small, but it can be as far as you see. So all these questions are discussed in themselves, and then all together they make the construction, they make the buildings, they make the space, and they make the aesthetic of the building.
But then on your website there's a project that you made ceramic tiling.
Sorry?
On the website there's a project that you made ceramic tiling to put around an H-beam.
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
On your website.
On the website? Oh, the ties. The ties, yes.
That seems kind of an off project.
It's totally in.
Because
no, it's exactly the same as this project or the school architectures or any. For the project in Vienna, it's of course it's a different program. We were in a small space, limited by 4 walls, a vault. We didn't have so much to do, just to make a coffee shop. So the main question for us was, how can we feel well in this space for a coffee shop? Exactly the same as if you think that we could be well in a greenhouse. And for us, because we couldn't change the vaults, the response was to make a sky. And the sky is a tiles coming from Turkey. But it's not because it's exactly what I explained, because sometimes our work is described as pragmatic. Yes, it is pragmatic, but it's not sufficient. If you remember how I explained the project, I always talk about the space, about the people in the space, because it's the most important. And then pragmatism is a way to arrive to complete the intentions. For example, the first house is not a cheap house. It's not a pragmatic house. If you want to make a cheap house and a pragmatic house, you don't make this house. You make a small house, very restricted, very narrow. Here, the intention was to make a very large house with this beautiful space of and the pragmatism, the construction, the economy is a tool to achieve this intention. And the coffee shop in Vienna, it's like this house. It's how to recreate in this space the better condition for the visitor of the coffee. So it's not a house of the. It's really look like the other project. It's all the materials. It's the context. But it's for us, it's really in the line. The pleasure is also totally part of the project. And the pleasure is also part of sustainability. So it's very large.
Okay. There is time for one last question. So, yeah. You're the first one.
Or no one.
It's again not a technical question, but more into the work question. Your projects are a lot with dealing with the economy of the project, the engineering, the documentation of engineering, and I know that in France you work a lot with architects in France work with economistes de la construction. Usually, and in Belgium we less, we tend to more as architects do the economy ourselves, so we know better. You don't hear well?
And not so much because it's quite noisy.
And so we tend to more do the economy ourselves as architects, which helps us a lot to make better details, cheaper details, and more efficient ones. How do you do in France? Do you work with economists? Because it's not very easy sometimes to have someone else do the economy for you, and then there's a distance between what you grow and what you achieve. And also with all the engineers, the structural engineers, the thermal engineers, because if you're talking about the greenhouses, you said that they were made for other purposes, they are not meant for proper living. And with the normative and everything, you said that it was about taking risks and everything. Did you find the perfect engineer that wants to take risk with you? Or you take the risk on you, on behalf of the engineer, on that?
No, in fact, I don't know how you learn architecture in Belgium, but in France very often it's a kind of two separate process, and making project and then talking about construction techniques. But in fact, construction is architecture, and when you understand that, of course, you think to the process of construction at the same time then you think the project, because it works together. So in all the projects, the constructing system, we bring them at the same time of the project, and we work with the engineer on the basis of the demand of a kind of structure, and then, of course, we make some adjustments together. So and it's the same for the economy. Economy is something that we have learned to do by ourselves because we have understood very, very early, and especially with the first house, that economy must be very detailed. And that's the tool that a lot of economists, not economists, but quantity, I don't know what's the word in English, but in fact, they only use very rough methods of cost per square meter. And it's very, very bad method of calculating, because precisely in a building, if you don't understand that some square meters are very expensive and some of them are very cheap, you pass by something very important. So it's very important to be very fast in the process, to be precise with some elements of construction, and to understand what makes the cost. For example, a glass window is not always the cost per square meters. If you work carefully on the catalogue of the producers, you can see that there is some standards of dimensions which can be very cheap, and if you pass 10% more than the standards, you pay 50% more. So it's very important to understand very carefully what makes the cost of the thing. It's the cost of, of course, the dimension, if the amount of hours of building that it needs, because in our countries the cost of work is important. It's how long it takes to bring it on the site. So there are a lot of elements, and to know these elements, it doesn't bring you to to be only on this question of construction, of pragmatism, but it's necessary to go much farther in the project and in the proposition. So it's fairly a work of an architect to make that. So, and to be very precise on the questions. It's the same for example, the concrete slab floors. You know that if you contact a factory and you understand that, for example, if you take 7 meters to 10 meters, you are in the best optimization of these floors, and you have 24 or 20 centimeters height. If you take 15 meters, you go too far. If you take 6, you don't use as much as you should do the capacity of this floor. So it's the construction is something very, very important to understand all this question and to work with that very early in the process. And I repeat that it's not against the creativity, it's not against invention, and more you have rigor in this, more you can go far in the creation in your projects. It's something that I'm really sure now.